You clicked on this video, that's kind of hardcore. Even if you don't realise it, just clicking on this video and opening it is incredibly brave of you. Thank you for being here. Now, I can promise you from the outset that this video will not be a telling off, a data doom dump, or a rant without solutions. I'm only going to ask one thing of you at the end of this video, and I promise it's really easy. Now, my videos recently have been kind of sleuth sustainability on purpose. I like to make videos where people can engage in cozy, wholesome activities and lighter discussions, but also accidentally talk about the climate crisis because it crops up everywhere. It is part of everything. But I do think we are due an on the nose one. Are you ready to bump noses? We're on the nose. Now, if you couldn't tell by my accent, I am British and I am therefore consequentially sweating my tits off this week, both physically and subsequently spiritually. Oh, Lena, if you're so hot, why don't you just go inside? My house is so hot, the fire alarm keeps going off. Me live in Britain, houses made out of brick, purposely to insulate. All of the houses stuck together, compound heat. Not dry heat outside, like countries closer to the equator, wet heat. Therefore, sweat, no work. Thousands of schools have closed, A&E is piling up, the trains aren't working, the Met Office has issued its second ever extreme heat warning. Second ever. And with all of that in mind, the politicians are still saying, drill baby drill. So I've picked this moment to pull you aside and talk to you about it, because if your brain works anything like mine, it's actually these extreme situations where my brain is able to get out of the everyday cycle and see things from the outside. So if I can just hold you on the sidelines for just a second before you rejoin the fray, I think we could try and make sense of things together. It's kind of like that really famous scene in The Truman Show where Jim Carrey's character goes to the edge of the set and realizes there are seams and he's actually been living in a TV show. Such a significant moment in this household that we actually have a picture of it hanging in our living room. Please don't walk back onto set. It's very important that you start peeling back the wallpaper, and I promise you won't have to do it alone. I recognise that I live in a country that isn't hit that often by the climate disasters that are hitting other places in the world, and I think we are particularly guilty because I think in part it's very easy to, when living in this country, feel like nature is background noise. It's the backdrop for our real lives, and this has been a week where we're reminded that nature is the stage, and with no stage, no show. It's one thing to see a graph on the internet and another thing to be living in a graph. And I truly feel this week that I have been living the graph. The closing page of this book, Being Ecological by Timothy Morton, really hit home for me this point. He says, "You are a fully embodied being who has never been separate from other biological beings, both inside and outside of your body, not for 1 second. You are sensitively attuned to everything happening in your world, which is why you end up blocking some of it, because you're afraid that the stimulation might be too intense. You have an idea that there is an inside and an outside of yourself, and perhaps this is the deepest way in which you start to think that being ecological involves some massive change." He talks about how you are already entangled with all of this, and it actually sometimes takes more mental energy to convince yourself that you're not. So if you think like, oh, I can't really act on any of this, I can't do anything about it because I'm already so tired, have you considered that part of the reason you might be at least spiritually or psychologically tired is because it takes a lot of effort to pretend you're not living in this? I think actually a lot of us are solutions based, which weirdly backfires on us, because as we start hearing small bits about the climate crisis, we go, well, what am I going to do about that? If I find out more, what am I even going to action? I can't do anything about that. And we jump 8 steps ahead before having actually learned that much about it. And we've already dismissed it as something we shouldn't engage with because you can't come up with a spontaneous, genius, well-informed plan in the moment that will concretely affect anything. Isn't that weird that you wouldn't be able to come up with what you could do about it before you've even read about it? So we skip all of those steps and just decide to not. I'm just gonna not right now. And then right now becomes always, but it doesn't alleviate the panic, does it? If it had worked, you probably wouldn't have clicked on this video. So odds on your brain is working like mine right now. And I'm thinking, what the hell am I living through? Which reminded me of a book that we're reading for my Patreon Gumption Club book club at the moment. And I mean, the whole book is good, but rarely a book is so good that even the first page on its own stands alone as an excellent point. What is the most useful thing you could know about your own life? That's a question with a lot of possible answers. In this book, I'm suggesting a general answer, something that we might all get some use out of knowing about our own lives. It is this: the name of the era you are living in. We all live in history. A lot of problems face us. The opportunities that present themselves are defined by not only our own choices or even the specific place or government we're living under, but the particular epoch of human events that our lives happen to coincide with. And then she gives the example that during the Industrial Revolution, it gave some people the chance to be very rich and have lots of business success, and a lot of other people to be exploited and become poorer than they already were. If you'd known the name of that era before you lived through it, it might have been a helpful bit of information to know when you were planning on how to live through it. And then she says, if you know that your time would later be called the Reign of Terror, that would also give you a useful warning. We can choose to resist our era, to go with it, to exploit it, or to retreat from it, but only when we know what it is. I think, in Britain at least, we are suffering from two phenomenons. One is that we think we know a lot about the weather, and that's because we talk about the weather a lot. The weather is forever changing here and very unpredictable. You can have like 3 seasons in a day sometimes. So it's just something we're really obsessed with talking about and preparing for on a small scale. Like, bring a jumper, bring an umbrella, bring some sun cream, bring a woolly hat. That's like a normal day pack for a British person. But I think that gives us the idea that we know more about weather than we do. We like intellectually, you know that you can't measure greenhouse gas levels or atmosphere changes or like glacial movements. But something about being British in particular, and I think this is probably our imperial complex, is that we just think that weather is something that we can either say, yeah, it looks cold outside, but it's probably fine, or like, yeah, it's hot, but I reckon it will cool down by the end of the week. Like, that's just an insane phenomenon that I have grown up with. And so when we're faced with temperatures like this, and we have inbuilt attitudes like that, it creates a huge cloud of delusion. The other problem is a more widely spread one, which is a phenomenon that's been recorded all over the world, the bystander effect. That when you see something bad happening, but other people also see it and they are around, you're less likely to act because you assume somebody else has called the ambulance, somebody else is dealing with it. I'm reading this book at the moment called Don't Even Think About It, Why Our Brains Are Wired to Ignore Climate Change. And he also connects this idea of the bystander effect to climate change. He says, when we become aware of the issue, we can scan the people around us for social cues to guide our own responses, looking for evidence of what they do, what they say, and conversely, what they do or do not say. If we see that other people are alarmed or take action, we may follow. If they're indifferent or inactive, we will take that cue too. And he's not like blaming people for that. It's a inbuilt behavioral instinct because your survival used to, and like arguably still does, depend on the assimilation and acceptance and protection and security you get from a social group. As Jeanette Winterson's mother famously said, why be happy when you can be normal? He says, there are real and serious risks involved with holding views that are out of step with your social group, and your brain is wired to give them greater weight than other risks, even if those directly threaten you. So if your views on climate change differ from the socially held views, you find yourself balancing two risks, the uncertain and diffused risk of climate change as opposed to the certain and very personal social risk of opposing the norm. And with that, I'll say, ironically, or maybe fittingly, it is far too hot to stay out here. We're going to have to finish this video indoors. I'm so sorry. I'm literally dying. Okay, that's better. Is better the word I'm looking for? That's something. We can continue making the video. I also just feel like, just how I always say, no books on a dead planet, no concerts on a dead planet, no fun on a dead planet, no creators on a dead planet. Like, I'm not being funny, but I am not functioning well. You are not going to get the best videos out of your YouTubers if it continues to be like this, which is not the main point, but just to situate you in the situation, there is literally nothing that will be untouched by this. So yeah, because we feel like we can't do anything, we don't say anything because it'd be awkward, we know, to say stuff without doing stuff, so we don't say stuff, and then nobody's saying anything, and we create this kind of social coercion where it's weird to say something. This book likens it to the story of the Emperor's New Clothes, where everybody in the town feels like it'd be weird to point out that the Emperor is naked, and it takes one small boy not to clothe the Emperor, source the fabric, sew it himself, fund a new wardrobe for the Emperor, but just to be like, I think that man's naked. For the whole artifice to crumble and for them to start really talking about what's actually happening. That oligarch's dangly bits are in front of me. I feel like maybe it's hotter this summer. Has anybody else noticed that we'll have food shortages in our lifetime if we don't sort this out? I'm feeling like I'm hearing less birds than last year. So Lena, you promised us an action point, something we could do at the end of this video. Do not fear. Have you heard of something called conditional cooperation? Not corporation, we hate those. Cooperation, we love that. It's the observable research that shows that people are willing to cooperate if everybody else around them is, even if it competes with their material self-interest. When we talk about the bystander effect, what's the opposite of being a bystander? It's not necessarily the person in the middle of the scrum, the person doing CPR on the person in trouble, the person stopping the robbery. It can just be the person who comments on it. Looks like somebody's getting robbed over there. Should we do something? Is that smoke in the distance? Can somebody smell burning? My theory is that you are overthinking the specific thing you might do to help solve this. Is it the best thing to do? Is it the most efficient? Will I be good at it? What if your action point wasn't actually the point at all? It was the fact that you were taking one. With the knowledge of the invisible but very real ripples that could create. In reality, I'm not doing very much. I don't eat meat. So maybe I saved a pig this week or potentially this month. I don't remember how much pig I used to eat. But what's one pig in the grand scale of things, except to the pig itself, of course, for which it is everything. I occasionally go out and deliver newsletters for the Green Party in my local area. That doesn't take me very much time, but it's also a very small part. Like, me doing that is not going to solve the climate crisis. However, you might think with this channel that I'm doing diddly squat, and you'd be right. It's not really making that much of a difference. But on this channel, I sat down and I fixed one pair of socks. And next to me, I was teaching my friend Hannah how to fix a pair of socks. So I guess we fixed 2 pairs of socks. But do you know how many pictures of fixed socks I have been sent from you lot because you watched that video and you decided to also mend your socks alongside us? In that scenario, I was not the main event. I didn't have to take on this huge task of fixing everybody's socks around the world, but I also wasn't a bystander. I didn't come into your house physically and fix those socks for you, but you watched me fix my socks. I read about the fast fashion industry and gone, hey, that seems pretty bloody awful. Let's fix a pair of socks, because I don't want to pretend like that's not happening. Not because I'm pretending like it's going to fix everything. At the moment, talking about the climate crisis in the real world, not on the internet, where I'm in an echo chamber, sometimes feels like talking about sex ed in the 50s. It feels like bringing up condoms to a Victorian. I think our mission, if as small as it may be, just to start with, is to make it less awkward, to acknowledge it. Because it's not weird that we don't know what to do or how to solve things when we don't even really talk about it that much. And the people around us are, by their actions, acting like it's not happening. Not only the politicians on our TVs, but actually just the people in our real lives. And newsflash, you are a real person in somebody else's life. In Being Ecological, he talks about how being alive is to adapt. That is literally all it involves. Your whole life you've been learning and adapting to the situations around you. Adapting is not camouflaging yourself into the situation and giving in. It's to potentially explore the possibility of radically changing yourself based on the environment you observe around you. You have literally evolved to do this. It is absolutely diabolical that we've been made to feel like we can't. What if that sinking feeling in your stomach when you look at the news and the graphs and you realize you're sitting in a graph and you're sweating your balls off and you're wondering how you're going to survive this heat wave? What if part of that sinking feeling wasn't just doom, it was your body trying to suppress your own instincts? So the question isn't a panicked, oh my God, what do? We can't do anything about this. But the question I'm asking myself, and you maybe want to too, is how do I adapt? How do I need to change the way I'm acting to respond to this? what is my adaptation strategy? Because what we're doing right now is not adapting at all. We're carrying on like things haven't changed. Here endeth the sermon. I am going to go back to my fan, not Craig, my actual fan, the one that blows cold air into my life. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about this during this incredibly sweaty weather. This topic isn't particularly sexy to the algorithm or to sponsors, so the real reason this video exists is because of the Gumption Club. Part of their adaptation strategy is to fund independent creators to make whatever they want, whatever they deem most useful or cozy or interesting or urgent. And I'd say that's a pretty smart adaptation move. So if you want to join the Gumption Club, my Patreon, I'll leave the links below. We chat all the time about this kind of stuff. If you're looking for people who aren't going to pretend like this isn't happening, there are a lot of friends waiting for you in the Discord, trust me. Stay as cool as you can out there, and I'll see you in next week's video, which I promise is going to be incredibly cozy. Frog snog out.